As Rh-negative eternal warriors on our quest of remembrance, there are times, to the detriment of ourselves and others, that some of us become too heavily invested in a particular way of doing things, preventing ones from making the changes that are absolutely necessary for our own genetic survival and fitness, and for our own personal growth and development. These souls become confused about their direction in life, and lost within this world simply because they are not asking adequate questions, nor are they listening sufficiently for the purposes of seeking a way out of their lost situation. What's even worse is that falling victim to emotionality can be one's biggest obstacle to finding their way out of a lost situation after having gone astray. Clouded emotions cause one to no longer be able to view a situation panoramically. Whether the cause is due to our own inability to admit we were wrong, our honest but naive loyalty, or our strong sense of perseverance, the result is always the same. We effectively lose sight of the big picture, and as a result, we escalate our commitment to following a path of self-sabotage that leads to us going in circles instead of moving us forward. We can only see the forest when we get out of the trees, meaning that you have to get completely out of the midst of something in order to gain a higher perspective, to gain understanding and overstanding, to see above and beyond the situation that is located directly in front of you. Blind allegiance to something that is flawed, for example, such as an allegiance to an organization, strategy, philosophy, or a group of people, keeps us psychologically and emotionally confined within a paradox of our own creation. An individual who lacks a systems thinking perspective while attempting to grasp complex subjects may become so preoccupied, fixated on, and overwhelmed by minor insignificant details to the point where it obscures the totality of the situation, and they completely lose sight of the overall concepts that they are trying to ascertain, failing to gain an insight of larger plans or foundational principles. By taking up too much time focusing attention on a few trees, one misses out on the many opportunities that are offered by the entire forest. A system is a cohesive conglomeration, entity, or group of interdependent, interacting, and interrelated parts that can be natural or man-made that form a unified whole. While there are some systems that are bounded by space and time, all systems are surrounded and influenced by its environment. A system is described by its boundaries, structure, and purpose, and is expressed in its functioning. A system may be more of its parts if it expresses synergetic alliances or emergent behavior. Changing one part of a system affects other parts and affects the whole system with predictable patterns of behavior. Developing a systems thinking perspective is a discipline that involves examining the linkages and interactions between the components that comprise the entirety of that defined system. Systems thinking is a higher perspective of panoramically viewing and discussing our context of existence that helps we Rh-negative eternal warriors to better work with systems to influence the quality of our lifetime campaigns within this current timeline. It also involves a unique vocabulary for describing systemic behavior. And so a systems thinking perspective can also be thought of as a light language itself. And because having a panoramic view offers a wide range of techniques and devices for visually capturing and communicating about systems, it is also a set of tools. Another key characteristic of developing a systems thinking perspective is the willingness to ask the right questions. It is great practice to start by naming a problem and then considering the factors that might be impacting the problem. Throughout the inquiry, one should be disciplined in determining the answers. A willingness to ask the right questions and consider all possible answers, as well as taking the time to experiment to find the answers rather than guess at the answers ourselves, is key to successfully solving the problem. A systems thinking perspective is a diagnostic tool that can help we Rh-negative eternal warriors to assess problems before taking action. It helps us to ask informed questions before arriving at conclusions. It prevents one from making an assumption, which is the lowest level of knowledge. One with a systems thinking perspective is not only curious, they are also compassionate and courageous for seeking truth. The goals of developing a systems thinking perspective are to examine psychosocial power structures and dynamics, their constraints, their conditions, and to elucidate principles that can be discerned and applied in a wide range of fields, as opposed to focusing on concepts and principles specific to one domain of knowledge, for achieving an optimized, intelligent direction of effort toward the achievement of an end. A systems thinking perspective provides methods for panoramically viewing the entirety of the whole, a framework for seeing interrelationships rather than individual things, and for identifying patterns of change rather than static snapshots. The intent is to increase our understanding and overstanding, to determine the point of highest leverage atop advantageous ground in order to approach situations objectively, and to identify the places in the power structure and dynamic where small changes can make the biggest infrastructural impact. A few foundational principles that drive a systems thinking perspective are remembering that 1. The whole is always greater than the sum of its parts. It is the property of the whole that is most important, not the property of the parts, as well as the product of interactions which are most important, not the sum of actions of the individual parts. 2. Systems can only be understood in the context of its environment. We should work to identify uniformity or similarities that exist in multiple entities or at multiple times. 3. Identifying specific individuals and factions that control these systems behind the scenes, their purposes for doing the things that they do, and overstanding that the actions that they take to victimize others to maintain and expand their power and control is directly related to their intended purposes of why they commit these acts against others. A systems thinking perspective is a continuous and constant lifelong process of self-improvement through unlearning, evolution, and adaptation. It has also been linked to the iceberg illustration, which affirms that visible events are insignificant compared to what's invisible. There's more ice below the waterline than what you can see with your physical eyes. Anytime you are battling with a challenge, it is wise to utilize a systems thinking perspective to fully comprehend the details of the issue, to discover leverage points to gain an advantageous ground to overcome the challenge. The hallmark of developing a systems thinking perspective is the way that this mindset forces one to employ a rational and objective strategy in evaluating and dealing with any given situation. A systems thinking perspective is a great tool for we Rh-negative eternal warriors to always consider the big picture. By reminding ourselves to panoramically view the world as a series of systems, and by understanding and overstanding our part within them, we can begin to make better decisions, create more efficient synergetic alliances with one another, and discover infinite ways to become even more productive in all areas of our lifetime campaigns.